What's up, Tiger fans? It's the Morgan Thomas Show, another Thursday night, and I'm excited to have you back with us. Not 7 p.m., but 8 p.m. because of some 8 and under softball practice that I am obligated to do, being the coach that I am this spring semester, I guess, or spring season. I am the coach. So I will be having practices for the next couple of weeks on Thursday nights from 5:45, 6:45. I can't make it back home in time for a 7 o'clock show. So we're going to move it to 8 o'clock. But the best thing is that we've actually moved back to, having an actual show. Fellas, I know, ladies, you're out there watching, listening from around the Twitterverse, the Facebookverse, the YouTubeverse, and you're like, where have the guys been? Well, we are back. We plan on being back. Just had a lot of things going on. So we're going to jump back into it, bring you back the show, bring you back our clips, and get right back into it because it's really the 2023 season now for football. Now, baseball, basketball just ended. Softball's running strong. We've got lacrosse. We got all kinds of things going on that we want to talk about, that we know that you want to talk about. I'm having some issues with the stream on my end, not telling me how many people are in the chat. So please make sure you get in and give us a shout out. The first thing you do is hit the like button if you like our show and channel. And then the next thing you do is get in the chat and say hello and tell us what you want to talk about tonight. But again, it's not just the Morgan Thomas Show. It's a Morgan Thomas Show that is about you as well. So you can be a part of it. And there are other gentlemen that are a part of it as well. And I'm going to bring them on now. My co-host, welcome in. Round of applause, everyone. Big Al, Alan Adams. Welcome in, Big Al.
It is a pleasure to be here. I got to tell you, I've been, reading through your messages on Facebook and, how I pay very close attention to all of your messages that you send. And I don't even think I realized we were doing a live show tonight. So it's really cool to be back. I love the live shows. I'm a live show kind of guy. I love interacting with the fans and getting them going and, listening to their thoughts, seeing their comments. So glad to be back live. It's awesome to be here.
You are definitely a live show guy. You've told me that many times that you are a live show guy and that's what you prefer. And I'm just want to make sure that I'm satisfying you.
Sure.
And so that's why I'm here, is to make sure that I satisfy you. And, so here we are, live show, Al. I see you didn't really shave under the neck here, but,
I would have had I known.
You weren't really ready. You weren't really ready. So, but again, it's not just the Morgan Thomas Show with Morgan and Big Al, even though that's the way it originally started and probably how Al would like to keep it. But we do have another guy. He is kind of our, red-headed stepsister, but we'll bring him on as well, Mr. Houston Burnett. Houston, why the long face? Actually, you know what? There's a logo in your face. Hold on. Here we go, Houston. This will be better. This is better.
I think Al would prefer this. I would prefer this to be the Allen Houston show.
Here we go. This is
honest.
Houston, just sit still. This is good. Can you see this? This is good. We'll just leave it there. This will be good for the Twitterverse because they're always like, I do this kind of things to you, but it's not true. I mean, I treat you with just as much respect as I do Al.
Sure.
I don't know. Sure. Yeah, I believe that totally.
I'm not gonna. It's asking me, should I delete my logo because it's in the way of my co-host? I'm gonna remove it. Even the system tells me that I'm being unfair.
Ouch. Yeah. No, it's good to be back on the live show. I've had a lot going on in the last 2 months, so I just haven't had a chance to be on the show. I know I did some videos, but I'm glad to come on and catch up on what's going on. There's a lot to talk about, not just in football. So I'm happy to be here.
There's a lot to talk about, really. I mean, we could, I don't really know what we could talk about. Al, you know that I know what we could talk about. I mean, I did bring up 12 topics to go over tonight.
Yikes. I mean, let's shoot for 3 and see how far we get.
Let's shoot for 3. All right. We could shoot for 3. I like shooting. I like to think that I'm pretty good at shooting. I'm like the opposite of Clemson basketball. I'm a good shooter. And so I like to think that that's what I'm going to do tonight. And we'll talk about it as we get in. We got a ton of people in the chat because, we really haven't had a show. So people are like biting at the, whatever the saying is, to get into the chat and say hello to us. Al, what was that? What did it say?
Chomping at the bit.
Chomping at the biting at the. Yeah, I get it. Chomping at the biting. Whatever they're doing, they're definitely eager to be a part of this show. Let me give a shout out to the people that are in here already. We've got Kevron Harris, John Sarian, Tiggs is in here, Tyson's in here, Tiger Paul 1979, Joey T. We got Taco Gaming. Thank you so much, everybody, for getting in and being a part of the show, and get in your questions and comments and emotional outbursts, because we want, again, you to be a part of the show. I don't know why my name disappeared. I got Big Al, I got Houston, but Morgan T is not showing up. We will move on. Everybody knows who I am. Look, I have my own T-shirt. Everybody knows. So there's no need for a label, because you know who I am. All right, fellas. I got the 12 topics. First of all, I'm gonna do like Mickey Plyler does me. Al, how was your week?
It was an interesting week. Lost a couple of people at work to different jobs, so we're kind of short staffed over there. And it's funny, people like to make fun of the SCDOT and not building roads anyways. Well, now I got less people to do it with, so it's going to be kind of rough. But it's been a good week overall. It's not bad. Just a little training, getting ready for basketball season. Church ball's coming up, so which I won't be here on Thursday nights when church ball starts, and that starts in a couple weeks. So
wow. Well, yeah. It is going to be I don't know how I'm going to do this with no co-host. I guess I'll have to ask somebody to be another fill-in for me. Oh, Houston, you're available.
Oh,
you're available. Houston is the resident expert in all things Clemson and college football, really college baseball, college basketball, college lacrosse. I don't know what Houston studies. Okay. As the opposite of me and Big Al, Houston studies. So Houston, how's your week?
I mean, it's been fine. Doing the thing, just kind of doing some networking on LinkedIn this week. And then, being with the newborn. Someone made a comment that I'm not wearing Clemson gear. It's because I had newborn spit up on it. So I had to make some changes to that. So we're going with a blue shirt tonight. I don't have anything purple. My wife's a Furman grad, so we were able to watch that today. It was awesome. I won't say it's like Watson or Renfro exciting, but at the same time, it's when you have an ending as wild as that was, that's definitely in a similar vein or stratosphere as something uncanny and crazy at the end of the day. So it was really awesome to watch that today.
Yeah, I felt like, I caught the very tail end of it. I couldn't believe it. I have a lot of people that I work with that are Furman grads. Actually, I work with Bryant Lambert, who does some of the games. I think he even called the game on the radio for Furman. And so I know he was super excited about that. Pretty cool to see what they can do. I mean, it can be done. Big Al, it can be done. You may have to actually do it in a team that's an hour away from the team that we talk about, but it can be done. Contrary to what people say, Al, this morning on the radio, people were saying it can't be done. I don't understand that. I mean, obviously it just happened. It literally just happened with Furman, and the team is not very far away from Clemson. Now, obviously different conference. So some people are probably going to say, oh, different conference. There's no way they can handle it. It's not the same. ACC is different. But what do you say to that, Al? Can Clemson be that team? Now, Mickey said, what's the goal for Clemson in basketball? What's the goal? And Mickey said, well, the goal should be at least every other year getting into the NCAA tournament. Every other year. So 2 out of 4 years getting into the NCAA tournament. I am not a big follower of Clemson basketball, so I don't know how realistic that really is in the basketball environment. Mickey says it's very attainable. I mean, I don't really know. So, Al, is it attainable? Is it something is that the standard that Clemson should have? Get into the NCAA tournament? Because obviously we now even have a bitter pill to swallow as a Clemson fan, seeing Clemson beg to be in the NCAA tournament, demand even, and then one and doneer at a home game with the NIT And then the very next day, see Furman beat Virginia, the ACC team. So,
Yeah.
Al, can it be done? What's the standard? What's your expectations for Clemson basketball?
Yeah, it can certainly be done. I mean, we've done it before. You know, we had the Sweet 16 appearance against Kansas not too terribly long ago. Anyways, I mean, you know, we've done it before. We can do it again. I think the standard's tough because, you know, I think every other year is a realistic expectation, and I think I don't have any problem with that. Every other year being in the NCAA tournament, no issues with that whatsoever. That wouldn't be my standard. Now, the problem becomes, what are you judging a coach off of, whether they're, you know, hired or fired or whatever it may be? Because if you're judging them off of a realistic standard, that's great. Okay. But if you're judging them off of, hey, we need to be in this tournament every year and playing to win a national championship, that's what you want. You play the game to win a national championship, right? Of course. That's what everybody should be doing. But it's not realistic, and it's not realistic for Clemson basketball either. So yeah, I think every other year in the NCAA tournament is fine. I don't think that's really an issue. And next year is going to come down as far as expectations. You got to find a way in the NCAA tournament. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Look, you can say we didn't deserve to be there after we lost to Morehead State or whatever. We deserve to be in the NCAA tournament this year, and I'll continue to say that. You know, third in the ACC, tied for third. You know, beat a bunch of the teams that made it in there. I just think I think it was a no-brainer. We should have been in. And hey, you've already got the built-in excuse for the loss, right? We didn't want to be there. That's what everybody does, right? I hate that kind of crap. You know, I don't like it. You made the NIT. You chose to play in the NIT, and once you did that, you should have been given it everything you had to win it all. So that was a tough loss. It was a brutal loss. I understand why Clemson fans are upset. I get it. I am too. But honestly, once we missed out on the NCAA tournament, when I felt we were deserved to be in there, I was just kind of like, yeah, whatever. It happens. I'm disappointed they kind of flamed out as quickly as they did in the NIT. I would have liked to see them make a run. Heck, those environments in NIT get really cool, by the way. If you've not ever been to any of those games, there's some really cool games there. In the environments, they get really loud, really boisterous, and it's a lot of fun. But it's not to be. Now we're on to next year. It seems like Brownell is still going to be the guy. So, you know, that'll upset at least one host on this show, I know. But I don't know. I'm not as Houston on this as Houston. You know, as far as should Brownell be here, should he not? I think he's done a decent job. It's just at some point, I think you have to decide whether decent's good enough or not. And I think Mickey says this a lot. You know, he talks about if you're just going to settle for decent, and that's what you're going to get, you know, and that's okay. But I just think at some point you got to try something different. And, you know, I think Brownell, like I said, has done fine. He's, you know, had a good run or two, but that's about it. And he's been here a long time, y'all. Brad Brownell's been here a long time. And I think, you know, maybe a new change of scenery might be something we need, you know, kind of like we're revamping the offense in football. I think that might be something to look at.
Clemson University basketball team loses in the first round of the NIT 68-64 against Morehead State from the Ohio Valley Conference in Kentucky. Morehead State, Kentucky. You know, that's a team that obviously I think Brad Brownell came out and said, hey, they're not a team to just take lightly because they will take you down. And guess what they did? They did take you down 68-64. Chase Hunter had 18 points, 6 of 11 shooting. PJ Hall had 13 points. A lot of, to me, poor shooting from Brevin Galloway, who is a guy who, you know, wanted to win. I mean, he came out on social media and said that he wanted to have his final ride with Clemson, his hometown team, the team that he always dreamed of being on. You know that his heart was in it, but his shooting ability wasn't in it. I mean, his stat line is not very good. Was not very good. Hunter Tyson also didn't really have that good of a shooting game when they needed him. So these two guys who were the two starters on the team, Hunter Tyson, one of those guys have been kind of hinted at as one of the best players in the ACC, really struggled. And that's kind of what happened. Really, you know, you saw them. Morehead State basically said, hey, we dare you to shoot threes, just like people do when they play against me. They see how bad I am in the three-pointer. They see how inconsistent I am. They're not worried if I hit 1 out of 9 or 1 out of 11 because, you know, for the most part, they're going to be bricks and they'll get the rebound and move on. And that's basically what happened with Clemson. Their offensive rebounding has not been good all year, so there's no shock there, really. Their shooting has been better than it was, but, you know, it's one of those things. It's the way basketball goes. Now, on the flip side, Walt Deptula said this tonight. You know, Brad Brownell actually in the past 5 years has had a better body of work than his entire 13 years. So the 13 years as a whole is there are definitely some droughts and some bad, basketball where he improved from being a team out. We've been to a game. I think it was either Clemson, North Carolina State, or Clemson, Florida State. Remember, we went to this game. This was before it was renovated, and it was like halftime 19-21. And I looked over to you and I said, this is brutal, bro. This is absolutely brutal. It was back when Brad Brownell was nothing but defense, right? I do feel like he's molded himself into a guy who could develop a team that can shoot, and they were able to do and score a lot of points this year, but they still had those inconsistencies. Al, Houston, you remember me calling you Houston at night after doing a highlight reel for the basketball radio show. I mean, I would sit there during the game and there would be highlight after highlight after highlight. And then all of a sudden 8 minutes of nothing. And I'm just sitting there listening to the radio call, like, when are they going to make another basket? Well, that's basically what happened again. Is they went on like an 8-minute drought again. And you just can't have that, especially in playoff basketball, in tournament basketball. You got to be more consistent than they were. Houston, I'll throw it to you. I know you got a lot of thoughts. This is obviously the heartbreak. I put down the heartbreak because to me, you're number one seed in the NIT. But there's a lot of mixed feelings. As Al mentioned, Amir Sims went on Twitter and said, hey, there was a big letdown from not getting into the NCAA tournament. And at the end of the day, most players don't really care about the NIT.
That's great. Great to hear from players. But at the end of the day, it's the same thing that we heard around Brandon Streeter, that we heard around Jack Leggett, that we heard around Monty Lee. It's boiling down to it's becoming excuses. All right. You want to do that against Virginia in an road environment where you lose a game by 6, fine by me. I get it. But when you do it to a 3-23 Louisville team, or a bottom-feeding Boston College team, or a barely over 10-win South Carolina team, or to lose by 20 to Loyola, or to lose at home, and this is the second time in Brad Brownell's career that he's blown over a 15-point lead at home in the first round of the NIT, to a team that they were outmatched. They were able to have a size advantage. You had better shooters. You typically have a better defense, and you let this team just walk in and do whatever they wanted. And there was no change, no adjustment, no nothing. There was no adjustments. It was honestly, Clemson's offensive strategy in basketball reminds me of what Monty Lee's strategy in baseball is. Get up there, swing for the fences, and if you just strike out, well, there's nothing we can do. And that's what Clemson's offense is. All right? And we want to sit here and say, well, he's gotten better as time went on. And maybe he has, but it's still mediocre. And, I want to talk about the standard here. I'll tell you what the standard should be. I'm not looking for a national championship, right? What I want is you can be an okay team, an all right team. I'm watching one right here, Iowa. I was not beating the doors in with anybody. I was not a team that scares me. In fact, Clemson only lost by, 1 this year to Iowa? And they're getting worked by Auburn in the tournament. They're in the tournament as an 8 seed. And they were able to win close games. And they've made multiple tournaments in the last 5 or 6 years. I don't know off the top of my head, but they've been a lot more than Clemson has. And if I were to say, let's break down a decade, all right, the standard should be 8 out of those 10 years, you just make it. 8 out of those 10 years, it doesn't have to be advancing or doing anything like that. Just make it 8 out of 10 years. Because we've had coaches do this. We've had coaches be here for short tenures. All right, Rick Barnes, 3 years in a row. And Clemson did not give him the necessary things to build, so he was out. All right. You had Oliver Purnell, who inherited just a dumpster fire from Larry Shyatt, and it took him, 2-3 years? 3 straight tournaments. And then he felt like he had tapped out his potential and left. Brad Brownell inherited a team going into its 4th straight tournament in a row. That's never happened. And from there, he went no tournament, NIT, no tournament, no tournament. Lost in the first round as a top seed in the NIT. Sweet 16 run, no tournament because of COVID. Lost in the first round of the tournament, no tournament. Lost in the first round of the NIT. That's mediocre, and it's time to go. All right. I'll take a hard stance. I'll take the heat for it from anybody who wants to be a but he had a record number or whatever. That's great. But you still lost to Morehead State at home, and you didn't make the tournament, and you're losing talented players going out the door that I don't know if you're getting that back next year. You don't know if you're getting PJ Hall back next year. That's the biggest difference to me. Are we going to sit around here next year and really believe that if you lose Hunter Tyson, Brevin Galloway, and PJ Hall, that this team is going to really have a shot at the tournament? You better hit the portal really good. And then on top of that, you look at the Furman game today, and you look at them be able to adjust, come back, and beat Virginia in a neutral site simply by just switching up the defense and switching up a little bit of their offensive motion, and they came back and won. You don't really see that with Clemson. They've done that a few times against inferior opponents, but no one like that. It's very rare. Honestly, the only time that I can remember is in Chapel Hill when Brad Brownell got incredibly lucky and they won that game, right? But at the end of the day, you've got a team doing that, and you've got a team that's consistent. Furman has a similar history to Clemson when you look at the SoCon. They went 4 or 5 times in a row in the 70s when they were really good. They didn't go for a while. They went 80, and then they haven't been back since. And all of a sudden, they come back in the tournament. You've got a coach who's won 20-plus games since he took over a dumpster fire of a program. And we're talking about, well, he's got to have more time. No. All right? You're lucky that a lot of the teams around here have filled up coaching positions so early because he might still be available next year. But you've got an example, a glowing beam of light that says, here's your sign right here, right? You need to do something.
John Sarian gets in and says, my favorite excuse is, quote, who you going to get that's any better? He says, geez. Now, I use this when I talk to my boss on my one-on-ones on my yearly. I say, hey, I know I'm not what you want, but who are you going to get any better? That's my question. Who are you going to get any better? And you know what? I've been with the company 10 years now. I mean, it's called the Brad Brownell. It's called the Brad Brownell way of doing your performance agreement. Okay, it works. So sue me.
Yeah, well, I mean, now that you go, well, who are you going to get any better? The guy that's 15 minutes from my house that just beat Virginia. That's who. So, tell me how many times
now, I'll ask you this. You really think that Furman's coach is going to come to Clemson? I mean, he's been there for a long time, right?
No, he's been there since 17. Look, I can't say that I have inside sources here, right? I'm just reading tea leaves with people that I know close to the situation. He wanted to go to South Carolina, and South Carolina turned their nose up at him. And they wanted either Sean Miller or the guy that beat him last year. He would have gone to South Carolina, and then he pulled his name out of that when they realized that they weren't going to take him. So I think he would absolutely jump at the opportunity to come to Clemson, especially because he's got family in the upstate. I think he wants to stay in the upstate. I think there's really only one job that he would take outside of Furman. That's Clemson. And since South Carolina is not available right now, I think he would take a Clemson job.
Well, I appreciate the discussion. That was great on the Clemson aftermath of losing to Morehead State. Again, just an absolute heartbreaker. Clemson falls in the first round of the NIT 68-64 Wednesday night to Morehead State. Not and I spelled it wrong. It's 1-0. Excuse me, Morehead State. I need to put some respect on your name here. So let me do that. Let me put some respect on your name, because they did beat us, Al. They did beat us. So I will update Morehead State. I thought it was just more with 2 O's, but I was wrong. Yet I was wrong yet again. You just mark that down as the first time I was wrong. Al.
Yep.
All right. I appreciate everybody getting in and being a part of the show so far. I'm loving this. I'm already loving this. Don't you love being back on the live show, fellas?
You've been telling us this forever. Got to do live shows. What are we doing?
Got to do live shows. Really, I really appreciate everybody getting in. Even though I know we have a lot more than my counter. My counter is saying 1. I know we have a lot more than that. I'm already on my phone and I can see we have more than 1. So, hey, if you haven't already, make sure you like the video and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Follow us on Facebook, on Twitter, at The Morgan T Show, at Radio Guy Houston. Don't follow Alan anywhere. Just listen to him on the show. And, you can be a part of our daily lives minus Al. So really appreciate everybody getting in and being a part of the show. We'll continue it with some more discussion, hopefully a better discussion, a lighter, I guess you could say lighter. I don't really know if it's lighter, but let's talk about Clemson baseball, fella.
Uh-oh. There he is.
Al disappeared.
He's right there.
All right, there he goes. There you go. All right, there we go. That's better. I like this. I like this setup here. Big Al, let's continue and let's talk about something a little bit more exciting versus Clemson losing a basketball game. Let's talk about Clemson baseball. Clemson baseball gets ready to open ACC play against the Duke Blue Devils this weekend at Doug Kingsmore Stadium. 3 games, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Clemson has 11-3 home record right now. Dating back to last season, I guess, or is that including this season? I don't know. How many games have they already played? What's their overall record?
Might be 11.
Their overall record is 11-6. So I guess 11-3 is their home record right now. The Tigers are averaging 6.9 runs per game, just under 300 batting average at 297. A 447 slugging percentage and a 391 on base percentage, 42 steals. The pitching staff, Al, we talk about the pitching staff constantly, still right now at that 4.14 ERA, which I don't think that's very good, coming from an ERA. Duke has yet to play a road game this season. So this will be their first road game. They're averaging 9.6 runs per game with 11-year head coach Chris Pollard. The Blue Devils recently beat Presbyterian 15-2 at Fluor Field on Wednesday. So I guess this is it. That would have been a road game, right? I guess this is their true road game in the ACC. Al, what do you think about this game coming up? Does Clemson have a chance? Is this a team that Clemson has a chance to sweep, or do they have a chance to maybe win the series? Or is this one going to be more on the opposite end of a struggle to get that win in the series, or a struggle to even get one win?
Well, look, Duke's a pretty good team. They've been a pretty solid team for quite some time now. And I think it's one of those weekends you kind of go into the weekend. Let's win the series. That's kind of what you want to do. Could you get a sweep? Sure, you could get a sweep, I guess. But I mean, we've been swept by Central Florida at home, or been swept by Central Florida. You've been you've beaten Georgia State. Georgia State, wow, what a game that was. First game against Georgia State. I got to see the ending of that. I remember being down in that game and thinking, I'm just going to hate myself if I don't turn this game on in the 9th inning when we got a couple runners on and we come back and win. And sure enough, walk-off grand slam. It was friggin' awesome to see. And I'll tell you this, Cooper Engel, I know he used to listen to the show. He must be listening to the show because I told him he should never be hitting under 300, and then he proceeds to get like 20 hits over the week because he went 5 hits the next game. I'm telling you, he's over 300 now, exactly where he needs to be. He's hitting the ball well. So that's good to see. And the pitching was not that bad against Georgia State. It could have been better. I think, I believe it was Austin Gordon. I think I was all over the place with names last week. I think I called him Alex Gordon, but anyways, Austin Gordon, who's now your Friday night guy without Ryan Emmons. He came in kind of struggled against Georgia State. I think they had 3 home runs off of him relatively fast in the first couple of innings. So that's not something you want to see. He's going to have to, find less barrels than that. But he's done a solid job, and I think you're going to need to be able to count on him. Tristan Smith looked really good. He looked really good. He's looked good now for a couple of outings. So he's kind of, that freshman who's coming on being the guy you want him to be. Even Grice pitched pretty well from what I remember. So when we get Ammons back, I think they have worked Clayton and Weiss back in a little bit. They're starting to kind of get their sea legs under them after coming back from injury. I think this pitching staff is going to be better. Now, I'm not saying it's going to be world beaters or anything like that, but I think they could be solid. And one of those staffs with our lineup and how well we're hitting, I think you can go into each weekend series thinking you have a chance, and that's kind of what you want. You just want to go into every weekend thinking you have a chance to win the series. This is one of those weekends. I think it's one of those that somebody's going to win 2 out of 3. I don't think anybody's sweeping or getting swept. But hopefully at home, you think that's going to be the boost you need to get over the hump and get the series. And it'd be a big series win. It'd be a good series win to start off in the ACC and everything like that. And of course, wipe the sweep of Central Florida out of your mouths, and that would be great. And of course, a loss to South Carolina that we should not have lost. It'd be nice to start off the ACC conference schedule with a win, with all the momentum we already have right now. We've got a lot going right now. We need to keep that going for sure if we want to reach the goals that we kind of talked about at the beginning of the year.
Right now, Duke is RPI ranked 123, while Clemson is much higher, way up there at 31 overall. So RPI wise, I mean, that would indicate to me that Clemson should have an opportunity to win the series and possibly sweep. Now, you mentioned Cooper Ingle. He is having a real good season so far, kind of got back out of his slump. He is one of the better hitters in the ACC, currently hitting .348 with 4 home runs, 4 doubles, 14 RBIs, 14 runs, and a .392 on-base percentage through 16 games so far. So obviously Cooper Ingle is kind of powering it through. You see him there on the screen there with Austin Gordon, as you mentioned, number 56.
Yep.
Houston, how are you feeling going into this weekend? You feeling pretty good?
Yeah, sorry, I just killed a mosquito that was flying around here. So if you heard I had to kill it. It landed right on my leg. I was like, bah, got him. So yeah, I mean, I think for the season where everybody was like, we don't know what the expectations are, and my whole thing is like, in a year like this where you don't know about this team, being able to get to the tournament would be huge. And it started out looking kind of rough, but you look back at some of the losses that Clemson has this year, mainly to UCF and South Carolina. At least 3 of those games, I feel like Clemson should have won. And it's just simply getting their sea legs. I feel like they've started to get better outings from their pitchers, especially Caden Grice. I've been surprised by that. Like Al said, I don't think this team's world beaters. I don't think we're going to be winning an ACC title this year or anything like that. But I think we're capable of stealing some games, and I think we're definitely capable of winning this game against Duke, or the series against Duke this weekend. Duke is a good team. They competed with Wake Forest pretty well. I think they might have won 1 out of 3 against them up in Durham. But at the same time, Clemson has been tested a lot more than Duke has. UCF, South Carolina, Georgia State's not a slouch as far as what they've been able to do. So I think if you're able to win the series this weekend, that's positive momentum going into another big week against Georgia Tech. That's when really things get cooking. So it's imperative to get a win this weekend. But I think it's definitely possible.
Your hits leaders in the dugout right now. Their hit leaders right now for the team. Number 10, Cam Canarella, true freshman, guys, batting .433 still after 17 games played, 29 hits total. Next up on the list, Cooper Ingle with 24. Number 12. Number 4, Benjamin Blackwell with 22 hits. Number 16, Will Taylor with 18 hits. And then number 8, Blake Wright with 16 hits. Outside of those 5 that I just mentioned, is there anybody that you want to say, hey, guys, let's step it up at the plate? Outside of those 5, is there anybody you'd like to see kind of break out this weekend?
So let me just get this clear. You said Canarella, you said Ingle, you said Taylor, you said Blackwell, and who?
And Blake Wright.
Blake Wright. Okay, and I was about to say, surely it's Blake Wright, because Blake started off really hot this year. I think did he go back-to-back to start the season off for homers? I think something like that. And he's cooled off a little bit. So you really want to see. I say that you want to see everybody hit well, right?
Actually, so even though Blake Wright is up there in the top 5 of hitting, he's really kind of cooled off from the beginning of the season. So you'd actually like to see him come back.
I would like to see him come back because he's capable of much more than he showed for sure. I think Taylor is just finding his groove. He's starting to swing the bat a little bit better, so that's nice to see. I mean, goodness, you really want to see Grice get going. I don't know. I don't know if it's in the cards. It's tough to see. It's a struggle to watch him right now, honestly.
Now is Caden Grice a pitcher now, or is he back to being a fielder? I don't know. What's the deal?
He very well could be. It's going to be real interesting. That's one of going to be the coolest storylines to see going forward. Is are they going to use him exclusively at pitcher, or are they going to have him play in the field? Because right now, I think he's looking at kind of a DH role, and we'll see. We'll see where it goes from there. But you want to see everybody hit. I think you'd like to see. You'd like to see more from some of these guys. You got the Chad Ferries, who seem like they've been here forever. You want to see him do more. Want to see Corbett get healthy and get back in the lineup, maybe do some things there. And I mean, all the players. You want to see them do. You all want to see them all do well. Obviously, you want to see some more power numbers, actually. But the fact that Cam Canarella is hitting over 400 is unbelievable, because that doesn't happen for freshmen. And this guy, Cam Canarella, he looks 12. He looks like he's 12 years old. He's skinny. He's not he's a very slight build. Obviously, this dude is awesome, and he's so fun to watch. And it's that kind of talent that Clemson needs to bring in. It's that's really going to be able to take this program to where we want him to go. I mean, he just gets up there and he just hits the ball, man. It's awesome. It is so much fun to watch. You want to see a Gavin Abrams get hot. He's got in there a little bit for us. He launched one against South Carolina on Friday night when we got the win against them. You want to see guys like those start to really come on, and so you can think about the future of not only this season but the program in general.
Now, what's the deal with Riley Bertram, Houston? I'm seeing him 60 at-bats with 12 hits, batting 200 right now. I thought, preseason we heard his name as somebody to watch out for. Seems to be struggling at the plate right now.
Now, say that. Sorry, I had someone hit a shot here. I got the tournament on. Say that player one more time.
I was talking about number 6, Riley Bertram, got a batting 200, 60 at bats with 12 hits.
I mean, you'd like to see him pick it up more. I think it's becoming more abundant that he's better defensively. I mean, you have teams like that where a guy will not necessarily be the best player at the plate, but is a solid defender. I could be wrong, but I feel like every time that I've watched him play, he's a solid shortstop. Plays his role really well. You'd like to see that more, or second. Yeah, I'm sorry. So you'd like to see more picked up off of that. Definitely. You want, like Al said, you want to see more hitters. But I feel like if you get a couple more young guys going, another guy that wasn't mentioned by Al is Billy Amick, especially after that huge hit on last Friday. You'd like to see him get going a little bit more. So between him and Gavin Abrams and maybe Tristan Pacetta, seeing those guys get some more hits, and if Bertram picks it up as well, then I think that's just a bonus.
Well, I appreciate you guys getting in with a little bit of a chat from Clemson baseball this weekend, going to play against Duke, hosting Duke in the start of their ACC battle there, ACC play, and Duke is going to start their first true road ACC games here at Doug Kingsmore Stadium. So look forward to that. Let us know over on Twitter at the Morgan T Show and at Radio Guy Houston what you think. Let us know in the comments as well. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the YouTube channel, and follow us over on Facebook and Twitter as well as we continue through the show. This is, again, the Morgan Thomas Show live every Thursday night, but not at 7 o'clock because I got some other obligations. So we moved it to 8, and we'll try to continue to 8 as long as we can go. We started off the show talking about men's basketball. So if you missed any of that, we'll put in the replay. We just finished up with baseball. Same deal there. Let's move on and let's do something about, you know what? I had something that I wanted to talk about specifically with, let's see. I want to talk about football here and some of the returning players. Now, specifically talking, no, let me fix it's a little, poor Tyler Davis is kind of sideways there. There we go. Look at him there. Okay. Now he's a little better. All right. So I wanted to talk about returning players with unfinished business. Now, Mike Reed recently came out and spoke to the media and talked about the football players that were the guys that could very easily, Houston could have gone to the NFL, and they decided to stay. I'm talking about the Tyler Davis, the Rukaroro, the XT, the secondary and Sheridan Jones and Jalen Phillips. Those guys really, a ton on the defensive side of the ball, and we'll get into that as well. But and not so much on the offensive side of the ball, but returning players with unfinished business. Now, Clemson, they correct me if I'm wrong. Let's go back to 2022. Now they won their opener, they won their division, they won their conference. I mean, they won the conference, right? So that's 3 of the goals. Now, did they win the state championship? We don't have to talk about that. We don't have to talk about that. They didn't win that one. But did they win their closer? You know how Dabo Swinney likes to talk about the closer. He doesn't like to say the bowl game or the playoff game. He just says the closer to keep it open-ended, right? They didn't win their closer either in the Orange Bowl against Tennessee. So that 2 out of 5 goals were not reached. Now, these guys had the opportunity to go to the NFL. What my first question to you guys I wanted to throw at you is, what in your mind is that unfinished business? Is it something specific, like a game unfinished business, like beating South Carolina? I don't know if that's necessarily something to skip the NFL for and come back. What's the unfinished business that's so important that these guys have to do, specifically the defensive guys that we know mention their unfinished business they want to come back and do? Is it win the Orange Bowl? Is it to get back to the playoffs? What specifically is it? Houston, I'll start with you.
Well, it just depends on which player you ask. I think with Xavier Thomas, he came in very highly rated. People thought he was going to be the next great thing. People thought we were going to have him for 3 years. Year one, he destroys Syracuse. Highlight play, Clemson wins the national title. And then from there, it's kind of a struggle as far as injuries and, not meeting expectations in the early goings of those years. And so it's commendable that he's come back this many times to Clemson to really maximize that opportunity. And it's injuries, playing the full season without being injured for an extensive amount of time. And, being able to be dominant in those games. I feel like XT's had good, film on tape when he's in and he plays. But the problem is he'll get in for a game and break his foot and be out for 6 weeks. So that's kind of one thing that he's probably saying unfinished business is getting a full season, healthy season, and looking dominant in the process. If he goes out and has an All-American year next year, then that's definitely finishing business. And then with Tyler Davis, I think it's a matter of he probably could have gone, but it's a similar situation where, he might have been playing second fiddle or something like that to Brian Brzee. He's going to come back and be able to shine this year with Rook, definitely with Peter Woods. So maybe that opens up opportunities to have a full dominant year for Tyler Davis as well. I think that's definitely something there. So it just depends. But I think there's a couple of ideas of unfinished business right there.
Now, the chat gets in, agrees with you. Of course, Houston always agrees with you. We see Tiggs. You can take a screenshot of this, Houston, if you want to use it. That's my thoughts as well. He needs it. So the chat obviously back in form with the weeks off, Houston. They have not forgotten that how much you pay them and how much they appreciate their praise and adoration. So yes, they agree with you. Clemson Carson gets in on the chat, says if XT could have just one healthy season, that would be a win. Al, thoughts on that?
Yeah, look, I don't disagree with what Houston said, but I'm going to kind of come at it from more of a collective whole, stance here. And I'm going to say unfinished business is they want Clemson defense to get back to the feared defense that we've been for quite some time now. When Brent Venables was running the show, we had defenses that nobody wanted to play. We still had some talent on the rosters for sure these past couple of years, but we have not been quite as dominant, particularly this year, as we have been in the past. I mean, you try to run the ball on some of these teams in the past, there was nowhere to run. They did a pretty good job this year, but they can always do better. The pass defense, we saw the secondary in some of those games and some of the rough times they had, especially against Wake Forest, especially against South Carolina, against Tennessee, those types of games. So we want to get back to the defense that nobody wanted any part of. Even when we were playing the big dogs like Alabama in the national championship. They may have scored some points, but I promise you they remembered playing our defense. We just had so many dogs on that defense, and it was so nice. It was so fun to see. And I think we got a lot of that this year, especially with these guys coming back. My question is, do we have them at defensive end? And speaking to his point of Xavier Thomas has got to come in, and he's got to be the guy we all thought he was when we recruited him. He's got to stay healthy, and hopefully being healthy is going to allow him to do just that. But I think in general, it's just, getting Clemson back firmly into the playoff and national championship contender conversation. I think that's what they mean by unfinished business.
Now that leads me to my next question there, and my concern there is that these guys that have the unfinished business, they're the defensive guys.
Mhm.
The side of the ball that needs to step it up is the other side of the ball, is the offense. So these guys are returning, Al, Houston, to make a run for the playoffs, but are only half of the puzzle, only part of the ingredients there. The offense. Now, Clemson made arguably, not really arguably, unanimously the best off-season move and coordinators of college football, getting Garrett Riley. So Dabo Swinney made that move when many people felt it was not going to happen. He sensed the urgency and he pounced on it. But there's not those returning guys there ready to run it back. There's younger guys. There's unproven guys. We're sitting here talking in the spring. There are 6 scholarship wide receivers not even practicing in the spring, guys. That's concerning to me. I mean, you've got Cade Klubnik, you've got CV throwing to guys who are not really their true starters. That's concerning to me about getting on the same page and being ready to go and comfortable with each other going into next season. Do I feel like the defense can run it back? Do I feel like the defense can get back to where they need to be? I actually do. I really do. My question lies on the other side of the ball. Could this be another season where you have a bunch of guys coming back, running it back, and the offense still lags behind? Houston.
Well, at least they gave him a shot to get Garrett Riley. I mean, look, you're going to find out which positions are lagging behind this year, if it's really lagging behind. If it's the receivers, you're probably going to see some changes there. If it's the O-line, who knows? You might see some changes there. But if holistically things come together, I mean, look, we've had offenses pop with unproven players before. 2011's calling right now. I don't know how many players were out then, but I also feel like it needs to be pointed out, like, look, it'd be one thing if these players were out for substantial, they're out for the year type of plays. That's a problem. But we don't know how many of these guys are actually going to be fine. Like, some of these guys are tweaked, bruised. They may just are being a little bit more tender about things just to be precautionary. This happens at every school and every spring break and every spring practice. This happens. And it just so happens to be that you got a lot of guys that played an injury last year and they got surgery after the Orange Bowl in January. And the fact that they're not healed and people are hemming and hawing about it is like, hey, look, they got surgery in January. It's March. All right. March Madness is going on. They had surgery 2 months ago, 3 months ago, if you want to say that. That's, it takes time to heal. And the fact that you've got a couple of those guys that aren't coming back, since you got guys that are going to be coming back at the end of the year or at the end of spring that are going to be healthy in the summer. You got guys that are going to be able to get caught up in the summer because it's not like they're going to just sit around and do nothing. Like, spring practice ends, but you can do installation in the summertime because they're going to be doing drills and everything over the summer. So it's just a matter of if this pops. And sometimes it's a good thing when you don't have someone who's proven, right? I see a lot of talk about, well, we just don't get the talent. That is, if I could curse on here, I would. I would say that's horse ass.
Please don't.
Yeah, if I could, I would, but it's horse ass. That's what I'll say. And that's just kind of where it is. You've got guys like Antonio Williams who could come in and play well. Noble Johnson seems to be doing well with what we've seen. And you've got Cade Klubnik. Like, he is going to be a better quarterback than we had in the last couple of years.
John Sarian gets in over on YouTube and says Antonio Williams and Cole Turner are just going to get more ready over the other guys, maybe. I mean, to me, you're not winning a national championship with Cole Turner as your deep threat. I mean, that's just how I feel about it.
Time out. TCU went to the national championship game with half the talent. Mic drop. Mic drop.
I just don't. If he's your number one deep threat, which he was at the end of the season, and Cole Turner, I mean, I'm not saying he's a bad player. I mean, he could run circles around me. But compared to we're talking about the goal is that unfinished business is getting back to the playoffs. I mean, to me, there's a lot to be said about there's no Mike Williams. There's no Artavis Scott. There's no Amari Rogers. These big time wide receivers out there, Deion Keynes, T. Higgins of the world, Justin Rosses of the world, they're not there right now. They need to get them. Can they get them? But they're not there.
So who was the leading wide receiver on TCU last year? Can you tell me? His name was Quintez Johnson. You couldn't tell me the year before, and he ended up nearly winning the Blitnikoff. He came from nowhere to do this, and that's a product of the system. And here's the other thing. You mentioned a few wide receivers like Mike Williams and T. Higgins. That was a product of Clemson's system at the time. We're not going out there under this offense and throwing jump balls. That's not the goal of this offense. The goal is to get guys in space. And if you go back and look at the touchdowns of Garrett Riley's offense, people have this concern of, oh my gosh, it's just, can they do this? Half the touchdowns Garrett Riley has is a guy running with no one within 20 yards because he sets his offense that way. So the matter is, can he catch the ball and run? That's my concern. All right. And then two, can you have a dominant receiver? I think there is a dominant receiver. And I think there can be others if they get some reps in there and develop. And I'm not going to say this is a national championship team. No. But once again, it brings my point back that we have talent, more talent than TCU. We do. It's pure up. We've got more talent than that. And I just think people are going to be eating their words when we get to November and December of next year.
Look, I want to get down to the crux of this matter.
Johnston? Are we talking about Quentin Johnston?
Yeah.
Houston was, yeah.
So 6'4", 180-pound 4-star.
Yeah. What about it?
I mean, compared to Cole Turner, 6'2", 175, 3-star.
Here's the thing, and this is what I want to talk to you about, because I need to know, first of all, I'm not saying Cole Turner is going to be the next Mike Williams or T. Higgins or anybody like that. That's not what I'm saying. But let me ask you this. There's two different things here we need to talk about. One, what have you seen from Cole Turner so far that makes you go, he's just a guy? Because he's made some plays out there. He has made some plays. You've got no reason to doubt him right now, other than the fact that he's a 6'2" white kid.
I am a doubter.
Like, that's literally all you've got right now.
You know what? And when he was a recruit, I was a huge Cole Turner lover, and everybody hated me for that. I don't know why. Now that he has the jersey on, I've switched. I don't really know. I just feel like, to me, when it comes to playoff level, I don't know. I don't feel like he is a guy that's like your number one wide receiver going into a playoff 4-team, top caliber wide receiver.
So basically, Hunter Renfrow wasn't a guy either, because he was a no-star.
Hunter Renfrow was not your number one, really.
He
wasn't your number one. He wasn't your number one deep threat. Now, he was your third down guy for sure. Yeah.
And that's pretty crucial, considering the offense that they were running at the time was a lot different than what they do now. And once again, if he can run, if he gets into open space, if Cole Turner is able to get free, it don't matter.
He is fast.
Yeah, exactly. If he's running and there's no one within 20 yards and he can just catch the ball and go, point proven.
I'm just saying, compared to the previous Clemson teams that went to the playoffs, the wide receiver group is nothing compared.
So, again, and I'm going to say this, to say they're nothing compared to them all, and you haven't seen this offense yet, you're just setting yourself up. If this pops, I'm just telling you.
That's true. That is true.
I'll come back to this.
I'm setting myself up for some bookmarks from Houston Burnett. That's for sure.
You
might be.
When I get to the point where it's like, Morgan, can you let me have that video file from March 16th? No reason.
It's going on Twitter, but no reason. And look, Morgan, I'm going to do something I don't normally do, and I'm going to defend you a little bit here, okay? Because I understand what you're saying. I understand what Houston's saying. Houston's talking about the scheme and receivers being open, finding the open space. This is what we've been begging for quite some time.
Well enough.
And that's
Yeah, I don't know
fine.
this team
And
well enough, you know.
yeah, Houston's 100% right. That's what we're trying to do with these receivers. But you're right. And when you're saying these receivers don't look like the receivers we used to have, they're not the Mike Williams who can out physical you and just out jump you no matter how well of position you're in. That's not the types of guys they are. At least we haven't seen it yet. Maybe Randall becomes that guy. He's not yet. So I understand what you're saying. But in this system, we're hoping and we're counting that it's not going to matter, because Riley's going to get them open. He's going to scheme them open, and he's going to be able to do that kind of stuff. And that's fine. You can win either way. Doesn't really matter. You can win both ways. But you're right. You're right. Houston's right. It's just you got clashing ideas of how you're getting there.
Yeah. So Houston, are we thinking going into this season that he is going to is it going to be the overall route running that's going to get people open versus what has happened in the past where it's like forcing guys to basically out talent the other guy?
Yes. I mean, I actually went and watched every offensive touchdown through the national championship game for TCU. And I counted a grand total of 7 contested catch touchdowns for the entire year. 7 contested touchdowns.
For the entire year.
The entire year. Or it might have been between.
I mean, I felt,
and
honestly, Houston, just you saying that, I felt like every pass from Clemson was a contested pass.
Yeah, and that's.
I mean, how many times did you see somebody wide open?
I didn't count because there were so many. That's the whole thing. Is I would implore anyone to go watch TCU's offensive touchdown highlights. You will be surprised how you're like, how did that guy get 20 yards away from anyone looking? It's all about setups. It's all about formations. It's all about looks and confusing people and putting people in space. And so that's my point is they may not look this way, but at the same time, if you have a dominant guy like Antonio Williams, who's fast and shifty and can get to that open spot, if somebody's going to play soft coverage on him, that's fine. We're going to get 15 yards. Or if you're going to be stupid and have some kind of stunt or something like that from your secondary, well, somebody's going to probably be running downfield uncovered. And it doesn't matter who that wide receiver is. It doesn't matter if it's you, Morgan. As long as you can catch the ball and go with it, that's the whole goal.
He went there. You know what? You know what, Houston? I got a helmet back there. I'll suit up tomorrow. Don't even tempt me on that. If they can get me open, I will do it. Now, will I catch it? You know, that's another story. Yeah, you know what? I think it's a good conversation because, like I said, I think that, you know, there's the defense yet again is going to anchor this team, but I'm just ready. I'm ready to see the other side pull their weight. I'm sorry. I don't mean to be too critical here, but the offense has not been pulling their weight like the defense has. And the offensive side of the ball, guys, they're not sticking around and fighting through and trying to prove that unfinished business. It's time for the offense to do that thing. And I will say this, and I agree with everybody in the chat. It's time for guys like unproven guys. It's time for guys that just showed up. Houston and I are big on this. We would agree on this, right? Tyler Brown. Jermaine Woods gets in. Adam Randall will have a breakout season. Tyler Brown will be really good also. I'm calling it. I agree with Jermaine Woods there. I really do. Because now Clemson is in that situation where it's, you know, these old guys, they've had their chances. I'm sorry. They've had their chance. They've had plenty of chances. I mean, and they're still injured. It's time to see Tyler Browns of the world. It's time to see the Noble Johnsons of the world, the fresh young guys in there. And maybe with this offense the way it is and the scheme the way it is, we'll get to see these young guys show out and actually be able to bring that wide receiver group back to what I remember.
Yeah, I mean, who's supposed to speak here? Is
Go
this
ahead.
like me? Okay,
You're good.
I mean, I agree, but I also think this is possible. Like, you had a similar situation in 2011. Yeah, you had Sammy Watkins, but you also had some guys that were unproven at the time, like DeAndre Hopkins, Adam Humphries. Nobody was talking about him, right? The whole thing was about Martavis Bryant and Sammy Watkins and all this, but you had a lot of guys that came through there. Jerron Brown. guys that stepped up that weren't really thought about that way, that got an opportunity to do so. But they just needed a change of scenery and to run something different. And I think that's what this is going to boil down to this year.
I think, some of that is like Tiggs gets in and says, now we have a QB that can throw a catchable ball. The wide receiver room will improve a lot. I think a lot could be said to that as well. Cade Klubnik will have another year under his belt. He'll not have that freshman jitters that he probably had last year. I mean, he rarely got any 1v1 reps, good v good reps in practice. We heard that many times, that it was DJ's job to lose, and he really didn't lose it until the very end. And that's when they started allowing him, Cade Klubnik, to get in with the ones. And it was towards the end of the season at that point. So he really didn't have a ton of practice with the ones, and it showed against Tennessee. It really did. I look forward to seeing what Clemson can do. I'm going to be cautiously optimistic with this, though, because, I just feel like that there's still pieces that are missing. They did land the best offensive coordinator on the market that was available. I do agree with that. Do they have more pieces that they need? Maybe they do have those pieces, and Houston is right. Allen is right. Maybe they do have those pieces. They just have to be seen and put in the right position to win. Ronan Hannafin comes to mind. I mean, I see this guy as well. But these are true freshmen guys that we're talking about. We're kind of forgetting the Brandon Spectors and the Bo Collins, because I think over time we're like, it really hasn't come to fruition as we thought. But again, I look forward to more discussion. We talked about Clemson baseball. We talked about Clemson basketball, Clemson football tonight. If you missed anything, hey, I'm going to put up the replays later on this weekend. You come back to the YouTube channel and check them out. Make sure to like this video. If you like our show, share it with a friend as well, and subscribe or follow us over on Facebook and YouTube. We appreciate everybody getting in and being a part of the show. And as I always do, as a parting gift to everyone, I allow my beautiful, lovely, talented, delectable, delicious, flavoricious co-hosts give their final thoughts. Big Al, we'll go with you first. Big Al, what's your final thoughts?
Final thoughts is I want to see all players, both sides of the ball, but specifically the defense, since there's the one that called it out. I want to see them complete their unfinished business, because believe me, we as Clemson fans had gotten real used to being in the playoff and competing for national championships every year, had a couple of down years, so to speak. It's time to get back. And if you guys are going to be the ones to take us there, I'm all for it.
I don't know what's going on. Oh, is it just me? Okay. Well, I'll carry this if everyone's still watching me. I'll bring it back to basketball. Look, if it's Brad next year, great, but there is a clear move that needs to be made. And I've been saying this for a long time. I'm Team Bob Ritchie. I'm always going to be that. Even if he doesn't end up at Furman, he's done something special with the Paladins this year. But I know what he's capable of because I've seen his record. And when you're able to win 20-plus games every year outside of the wonky COVID year when they, didn't play enough games anyway, and he was only able to win 16, that's still a lot. And they've competed for the SoCon championship every time he's been there. So it's time to think about that in real time. Can he elevate the status for Clemson? I think he can. And if you're looking to make Clemson a top tier, top half of the ACC consistent tournament team, I think it's time to make that move to him.
Thanks for being a part of the show, everybody over on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, wherever you're watching or listening or being a part of the show. Thank you so much. Again, this is the Morgan Thomas Show live every Thursday night, going on 8 p.m. right now because of some conflicts in the schedule. Normally 7 p.m. You can check us out over on Twitter at the Morgan T Show or radio at Radio Guy Houston for Mr. Houston Burnett. But on behalf of myself, Mr. Houston Burnett, and Big Al, Allen Adams, we'll see you, Tiger fans, at the top of the hill.